Today I want to talk about an important element of tool design, which is handle texture, which can reduce both chronic and acute injury, and also just give you better control, help you do better work. A lot of people come at me like it's some kind of radical concept to put a texture on a wooden tool handle, but I don't think they've put much thought into how many everyday objects are intentionally textured for grip. There's a lot that are plastic, a lot that are metal, and some that are wood. Let's look at some of these. I'm going to start with everyday objects that most people don't consider to be tools, and then I'll show some mass-produced tools that have textures, and I'll finish up with some of my personal use and the tools that I make and offer for sale that have textured grips and show some of the ways that you can do that. If you start paying attention to these everyday objects, you'll notice that many of them are designed to have splines or ridges or knurling, cross-hatching, strategically placed to make it easier to manipulate those objects. I just went around my shop for several minutes and grabbed random tools that I noticed had textures. We've got saws, clamps, screwdrivers, pliers, chisels, axes, spoke shave. I'm probably missing a few things, but almost every kind of hand tool can benefit by putting grippy textures in the right spots. A lot of manufacturers know this and implement those into their designs to make a better product. One thing you might notice is that regardless of the material, here we have a couple that are metal and plastic and rubber, but the texture is similar. It's like cross-hatching or knurling. In the case of splines, like we see here, you'll notice that the grooves and ridges are always oriented perpendicular to the direction of force when you're using the tool. Interestingly, I could find very few examples of any wood handles that have a factory-produced texture to them, despite lots of examples of metal, plastic, and rubber. Now, I think the reason we don't see textured wooden handles has to do with human psychology more than anything else. We have sort of romantic notions about wood. It feels good in the hand when it's smooth. When we think of fine furniture, we think of the visual beauty of wood. And it seems a shame when we know that beauty is in there to see some rough surface that doesn't showcase that. I'm not the first person that it has occurred to texture wooden handles. Here's an example of a little hammer I found at a garage sale or something where somebody took matters into their own hands and put some grip on their hammer. Here's a small assortment of my personal use tools. Let me show you how you can put some of these textures on your tools. I built these two hammers about the same time several years ago. And then a year or two ago, I scratched this one up with a bow sander. And now every time I pick up the smooth one, it just makes me mad because it feels wrong. So this is a bow sander. It's a piece of heavy grit belt sanding material stretched across a wooden bow and tucked into a kerf on each end. So there's a little bit of tension to it, and you just saw it back and forth basically. I think this is 36 grit, something like that. To fix this handle, I'm going to just saw this back and forth, cross grain on every one of these octagonal facets. It only took about 5 minutes to do all the cross-grain scratching and give it a coat of raw linseed oil. So if making a bow sander doesn't sound appealing to you, a fine rasp can essentially achieve the same end. I want to mention specifically this carbide rasp made by Kutzall is excellent for this particular purpose of texturing. Dimpling might be my favorite texture that I've tried so far. Here are a couple examples. Katrina usually does this effect for me because she has lots of practice using this as a decorative effect on the outsides of our power carved bowls. She uses either a rotary file, a double cut carbide file with a 1/4 inch shank, which can be chucked into a die grinder or a palm router, or a carbide rasp with a 1/8 inch shank, which can chuck into a Dremel, Fordham, any of those smaller rotary tools. And this is what the process of dimpling a knife handle actually looks like. Just a light touch, slightly overlapping the divots, and then just use a palm sander with a 150 grit disc to graze down the sharp ridges. Another texture I like a lot is just right off a bandsaw, because the little grooves and ridges that the bandsaw leaves essentially are mini splines, like I talked about before. You definitely want to practice this technique on some scrap first, but you basically just drag it backward at a diagonal angle, lightly grazing the surface of the workpiece. I've had some people see these textures and assume or claim that they're going to create hot spots and blisters and discomfort and cause injury, and that's total nonsense. I use these tools constantly, hours at a time. They relieve all those issues. They don't cause them. In fact, I can't overstate how much they help. And the only way to really find that out is to just try it for yourself. Any of these textures are a great benefit to pretty much any tool you want to put them on. Strongly encourage that. I hope this helps somebody out there get better use of your tools and have more comfort doing your work. As always, thanks for watching. Appreciate it.